Hey everyone, welcome. Hello, Linnea.
Hello.
All right, we are live today, you all. So, we are carrying on with this live series we've been doing every month
Yes.
on different topics around your digital marketing and your social media, and really what you need to be thinking about if you are a small or mid-sized business. That's who we work with a lot. That's where we're very experienced and we can give you a lot of tips. But we've also done a lot of training and consulting for corporations as well as nonprofits and government agencies. So it really spans. And today, our topic that we want to talk to you all about is your website.
Woo.
And that's a big deal because as an agency, we focus really heavily on working with clients again with social media and their email campaigns. And in order to really be effective with your paid ads, your organic social media posts going up on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram, in order to have really good campaigns that nurture your leads or retain your customers, you really need to have a strong foundation.
Mhm.
And that foundation truly is your website, and having a really good website that isn't just there to tell people what you do, but to actually be a source that can generate leads for you. I'm a strong believer that's what websites should be doing. You can design a simple brochure style website, but in some way, shape, or form, if you're a business trying to get a service or sell a product, then you really need to have a website that can convert for you.
Yes.
The only exception to that is if you're a manufacturer or something like that, you might not be looking for conversions the same. But even when we've met with manufacturing companies in some way, shape, or form, they are looking for conversions. So we want to talk about that. Our topic for today's live is your website needs a redesign if.
Yes.
And we are here today to fill in the blanks. So I'll start by introducing myself and then I'll pass the mic. I'm Sonia Crystal Williams. I am the co founder of Go Getter Marketing Group. We are a digital marketing agency based in Atlanta, Georgia.
Awesome. And I am Linnea Davis. I am a digital associate with the Go Getter Marketing Group.
Yep, also based here in Atlanta.
Yes.
All right, so let's dig into this topic, just around, again, what do you need to do? And we're going to cover some things to think about. We're going to kind of go down a checklist of what you need to be thinking about if it's important for you to be going through, a website redesign. You really need to be thinking about that. If you're watching and you have questions, feel free to drop them into our discussion and we will answer some of your questions. But we're going to go along with our agenda and really, again, focus on addressing some things that you need to think about or just signals. When is it time for a redesign? How do I know that I need to be focused on, redesigning my site? So before we get into that checklist, I want to start out by talking about some of the common mistakes. And Linnea, I'm gonna actually let you handle this because I know you
Yes.
had a list
I
of
do.
the stuff you see people do on websites. And truthfully, y'all, even if you're not thinking about your own website as a consumer, you've probably
Mhm.
experienced some of the things on Linnea's list too.
Yes.
And we kind of put this in the don't category, like the stuff you don't want to be doing on your website. And if you're doing it, it might either require a redesign or what we call a facelift for your
Mhm.
website. So let's start. What do you got on your list, Linnea?
Awesome. Exactly. So I have five major things that I have seen that I just truly believe it's just no, I can't handle
Don't
it. I
do
can't handle
it.
it. Yeah, I can't handle it.
Right.
So, number one, if your website has too much text, if I am logging on your website, I'm going to your home page and all I see is paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs.
Read, read, read. Yeah.
Yes, it is just so overwhelming, I think, for your website visitors and for your prospect clients or whoever is visiting your website. Now, you might think, okay, this is good. I'm explaining our product or service, I'm getting the point across. But to that website visitor, it may not come off that way whatsoever.
It might be overwhelming, and
Definitely.
particularly on home pages. So your
Mhm.
product and service page is great. Have that text there.
Yeah.
And a lot of companies might be in the mindset, well, we need to have a lot of information on our homepage, or we need to make sure from a search engine standpoint that we're
Yes.
getting keywords in there. And those are all valid points.
Mhm.
But on the homepage, there does need to be a balance of good headlines, of media such as text or
Mhm.
videos.
Yeah.
And if you have a lot of information you want to communicate, you can put some of it on the homepage and then provide links that redirect people to other pages of your site where it's appropriate to be more text heavy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's a great point, Linnea.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes, that would be much better to have separate pages. Okay, so moving on, another one. If I go to your About Us or your Our Story section and it tells me nothing, it doesn't tell me anything about you, either about the product or service you're selling, who is actually behind, like who's the face behind the company or business. If
Mhm.
it tells me nothing, it's a big turnoff to me because I know we had discussed this yesterday, Sonia. Like, where am I spending my money? What am I investing in? What am I doing?
Yep.
Well, if it doesn't tell me anything, then kind of it throws me off a little bit and it
Yeah.
makes me a little hesitant, I guess you can say.
Yeah, I mean, like here's a picture for y'all to think about. Think about if you've ever been on a website, and I'll give a real world example because
Mhm.
I do this all the time. I'm always on other websites because I live in social media. It's what we do day to day. And I could be on Facebook, strolling through the feed, and I get hit with a lot of ads all the time. And I don't mind being hit with ads that are appropriate. I'm going on vacation soon. I've been on different websites looking for swimwear. I'm getting ready for the summer, right? And
Yes.
so I'm getting hit with a lot of ads around swimwear and summer dresses and things like that. And I'll click on some of these sites to visit. But what I do before I buy anything, or if I'm considering buying, especially from a stranger, especially from a company I've never
Mhm.
seen and I'm on their website, I do go to the About Us section. And I'm like, okay, where is this company? Where are they located? Are there real people behind this brand? Nothing makes me more hesitant than going to a website and it just says, we are, for example, a clothing brand bringing you the latest fashion. And that's it.
Yeah, like what?
Right. That doesn't tell me anything. And it does make me more apprehensive about buying. So we
Yes.
want to think about on those About Us pages, put a more descriptive summary of your business. I
Mhm.
mean, if it's appropriate, put your mission, put what you're really about. You don't need to put all the employees that work at your company on that About Us
Mhm.
page, but maybe just put the leadership or have something about the leadership on that page. It will help the website visitor feel way more comfortable with wanting to proceed with information that they might be giving you. Hacking is just a real thing these days, and I am hesitant to opt in or provide my information to anything that looks suspicious to me.
Yes,
So just for credibility reasons, you really need to have something more on that About Us page.
definitely. I agree with that. Awesome. Okay, jumping on to my next one on my list. Too many pop-ups.
Mm,
One pop-up to subscribe to your email is fine. Maybe a coupon. Three, four, and five pop-ups. You
we
lost
got a problem.
You lost me.
Yes. In
Yes.
fact, you all, again, going back to search engines, like if it's really important that your website's getting organic traffic and you have an SEO strategy, you've got to stay away from putting too many pop-ups on your site. In fact, Google penalized sites about 4 or 5 years ago, somewhere in that range, 3 or 4, something like that, 3 to 5 years ago. Google, when they did an algorithm change, one of those major updates, they started penalizing sites that had invasive pop-ups. So there's nothing wrong with having a pop up that prompts people, hey, join my email list,
Mhm.
or having a prompt that says, here's a deal, a promotion, an offer, something along those lines. But again, to Linnea's point, like the line starts getting a little thin and you start crossing that line if you've got
Yes.
pop-ups coming here and there, as people are trying to navigate through your site, and
Mhm.
it's preventing them from accessing your content. Or if you have one of those really big pop-ups that makes it hard for someone to find the no thanks or the X
Yeah.
button to get out of it, those are all things that could really harm your traffic and how much time people are spending on your site and how they navigate. And those are all negative signals to send to search engines if you're hoping to increase your ranks. So be very, very careful about those pop-ups.
Very true. I agree with that. Awesome. Okay. Jumping into number 4, poor navigation. Or you have one header menu and then the footer menu is different. Then you also have a menu on the side of your website. Just poor navigation, because if I can't go into your website and navigate, where to go, what I'm looking for, how to get my questions answered, you lost me. It's too complicated, it's too much, and it just only leaves you with more unanswered questions.
Yes, it's a big don't. And I'll give everyone a real world example because so I teach a course at a university located in Connecticut. And in that course last semester, I taught a content strategy course. And in that course last semester, the grad students in that course we gave them an assignment to work on projects where they were evaluating the websites of a list of nonprofits. And the most common thing that came up with a lot of these sites were poorly constructed navigation. Now, listen, sometimes you have a business and there's a lot of information to communicate. So you end up with, the donate button in the corner, and then there's the regular main navigation. And then under that, there's another sub menu. And maybe that menu has our board members, donation links, get involved. And then you've got the footer menu, and there's just menu on menu on menu.
Yes.
You've got to find a way to simplify. And even in that assignment, that was the number one recommendation that came back from those students who evaluated that list of websites, was restructuring the navigation. And the way they did that, and the way you can do it too, is simply by going through an exercise with your team and really kind of on literally pen and paper, you can remap how that navigation needs to look. Figure out, are there opportunities to consolidate pages so that you can shorten the navigation menu? Or here's something to also consider and think about, because this comes up a lot, especially with newer site owners, when we're working with businesses that are pretty fresh and getting started with their first or second website, is they'll often ask the question like, does every page of my site need to be on the navigation menu? Can I have some pages on my website that are hidden? And the answer is yes, absolutely, you can. So you don't need every single page to show up on that nav menu. If you really feel strongly about that, then we could think about ways to use sub navigation, which falls under your main navigation links that you want to, again, make, pretty specific and firm. And then again, you might have some pages on your site that link internally to another page that is not displayed on the navigation menu. That is perfectly acceptable, perfectly normal, and it should absolutely be a best practice incorporated into the consideration of a redesign. Now, I'm going to give y'all one more really cool resource, because this is one, when we went through a site redesign about, 3 years ago or so, we actually did this. We used a tool called Hotjar, hotjar.com. And you can sign up for Hotjar. I think you can do a free trial. I think there's a free account version as well still, where you can kind of test it out, but it is a paid tool. And the cool thing about Hotjar is it gives you a heat map. It shows you, so if I was, on the site, I'm going to see a heat map when I look at that navigation menu spanning left to right or up and down. And that heat map is going to show me where people's mouse moved when they landed on different pages of your website. So you can actually track that and get the data to start to understand the habits of your website visitors. This will help you make way more informed decisions when it comes to your navigation. You should be tracking that. You should also have a Google Analytics in place, which will also track. And there are great reports and user analytics that will show you where people are dropping off your site. If you're getting a lot of drop-offs off that homepage, it's probably because people can't get to what they need. So they're leaving the site instead, So really take those thoughts into consideration. You don't want that, kind of overwhelming navigation menu. You do want one that's more simplified, and you can use data if you already have a website to help you understand how to structure that.
Yes, definitely. Okay, last one, drum roll. Now, You design this beautiful website. It looks great on your desktop. I go to look at my mobile phone
Mm,
and the website's a little off. The mobile version doesn't look so good. That throws me off a little bit.
yeah.
Things are a little hard to find. The pictures are misaligned. The text is misaligned.
Yep.
It's looking a little crazy. That's one thing that definitely stands out to me. And I think it's one thing too that a lot of people miss.
Yeah, exactly. And Michelle, thanks for your comment. Yeah, thanks for jumping in. I hope that's helpful to you. And by the new last name, I just caught that, Michelle. We'll talk about that later. but but hey, you guys, listen, when it comes to mobile, you've got to make sure that your site is mobile friendly. Okay. And so there are plenty of tools out there that have been released where you can check on the mobile friendliness of your site. If you just do a search on Google and really do a Google search for Google's mobile friendly tool, you'll find some tools that will help navigate, help you navigate what's going on with your site from a mobile version. But you've got to think when your site is getting redesigned, you've got to think in terms of what is this site going to look like when someone's on a phone and everything shifts to a one column format and they need to be able to scroll down. So what that means on a redesign is, you've got to consider the layout of your site. Is it a full width site? Those are usually the easiest to kind of stream down into mobile.
Mm-hmm.
If your site has sidebars, sidebar on the right, sidebar on the left,
Yes.
and other elements, that's not a bad thing because it might work really well on desktop. You just need to make sure you're partnering with a developer who understands how to translate that and make that look good on a responsive version of your site. So when we say mobile friendly, we are also saying your site needs to be responsive, which means if somebody gets to a smaller screen size on a mobile device, such as a smartphone or a tablet, what is your website going to look like? So we want to make sure that we are keeping that in mind too. Mm-hmm. So those are the 5 don'ts. Okay. Those are the things you want to stay away from, but
Yes.
those are good indicators that you might need a redesign. So let's just go like a little bit further into you need a redesign if, and I'm going to give you this checklist with a few other things. Mm-hmm. First of all, let me start by saying we did a little bit of research and answered the question on how often or what is the lifespan of a website, right? How often should a website get redesigned? How often? What's the average that a business goes out and gets their websites redesigned? And that average is 2.66 years. Oof. A little over 2.5 years. So about every 2 to 3 years, that is the average based on a research and a study that was done. And you can look it up and validate that. But that is the average of how often companies are going out and getting their websites redesigned, changing the look, the feel. Mm-hmm. And I know for some of you, you might be saying, oh my gosh, that is not what I expected, because, sometimes when we're helping clients redesign their sites, they've had their site for 4 or 5 years, some even longer, especially in the small business world. And as a small business owner, you've got to remember technologies change. So that's one reason why we update sites. Okay. So you might need a website redesign if your site is more than 3 years old. Okay. Because the look, the feel, what's going to serve your audience best, and the technologies associated to do that may have shifted. Okay. So keep that in mind. Doesn't mean you have to always redo it. We're big believers in doing WordPress sites. And the beautiful thing about WordPress is you can kind of keep your content intact in terms of text and images, but refresh the look. You can work with a developer who's going to refresh the look. So, our team, we refer out the really, really big websites, the big projects to developers that we partner with. But internally, we handle kind of the small brochure sites. We work with a lot of healthcare providers. We work with financial services and legal services and some e-commerce sites. And so depending on the size of your site, again, sometimes you can work with a front-end developer. That's who's on our team. And you can get stuff done, and then sometimes you need to take on a bigger project. But in either regard, sometimes you can just kind of give your site a facelift, even if you're at that 3-year mark, but you've got to be thinking about what needs to be done. So those are some things to think about as well. So you need a website redesign if your site is old. And some sites, y'all be careful. If your site looks like it's from the 90s, that's old, right?
No.
It's not a text and it's not imagery, and it doesn't have that HD feel and the color and all those things, then you might need a redesign. So keep that in mind as well. You also might need a website redesign if you only have one contact form on your site. So I say redesign / facelift, because remember earlier I said, and if you missed it, I said this earlier, your website should be designed to convert people. It should be designed to help you get business. And if you only have one contact form on the contact page, you're assuming that people are going to navigate to that page. That's not always where people land when they get to your site. They might have found your site through a search engine and ended up on a blog post, or ended up on a services or product page of your site. So on those pages of your site, you either need to have a form or a button that gets people to a form within 1 to 2 clicks, where it's easy for them to access that information, and then you move them into lead gen. So you want to really think about and assess, where are my contact forms on my site? And if I only have one, how can I get people to other places on my site where it's going to be more beneficial for them? Okay. Another thing, you might need a website redesign or a homepage redesign if the important information that you want people to see when they land on your homepage is not above the fold. So the fold is, when we look at a website, you got a screen here, okay? And only so much is going to display on that screen before someone has to take their mouse and scroll down.
Yes.
The important information that you're trying to communicate to people needs to be in that little screen when they first land on your site. So we call that above the fold. So you really have to consider, is my primary message there so people immediately understand what we do as soon as they land on the site? Now, I know a lot of sites start with images, and that's okay that your image is there. It doesn't mean you need a bunch of text there, but do you have a headline or a learn more button or something that gets people to where they can get more information, and that accurately communicates or depicts visually or through words what your product or service is?
Yes.
Okay. So you might need a website redesign or homepage redesign if that's not happening. Okay. You also might need a redesign if, and we hit on this earlier on the don'ts, the things you shouldn't be doing. But if you've got that busy navigation menu and pages that need to be consolidated, that's when you need to take a closer look at things with your team and really assess from a text and content standpoint, how do we need to redesign this whole thing?
Yes.
And that is time consuming, but it's well worth it. And sometimes you can recruit support in to get some fresh eyes on it to help you with that process. Or again, go through it as a team, page by page. Get, if you can get your customers involved, that's even better. If you're kind of reworking some things in your website, ask for feedback, or before you start the redesign process, send out a survey and ask people questions around their experience in using your site and what led them to make some of those decisions. It is a process. It does take time. That could, take a couple of months to do before you even get to a place where you're starting to think through how you're going to consolidate those pages or reorganize the navigation menu. But it is so well worth it in the end to get it right than to make assumptions. I mentioned earlier also using tools like Hotjar and Google Analytics to look at your data. So Google Analytics has, in the Universal Analytics version, has some really great user reports that you can look at that will give you literally the journey that people take on your website. You can find that in the behavior section and the acquisition section when you're in Google Analytics. Those are a few different places you can look at that will help you literally see the journey that people are taking. Okay. And if you have questions about that, just send me a direct message. I can tell you where to find that in more detail. But your Google Analytics report should really be giving you some good information to help you understand how people are interacting with your website. Okay. So a few final things to think about. We've hit on a lot of points in terms of what you need to do if a redesign is needed. Now, not every site needs that full revamp. Okay, so I'll also say like you might need a facelift. Okay, and the facelift would be simple things like making sure your site is tracking conversions. That's more of an internal thing that needs to happen on your site. That goes back to using Google Analytics or some other type of tool that can track people actually going to your site and completing a contact form. That way, you know what percentage of visitors come to your site actually convert. Okay. So that can be tracked in Google Analytics. And if you're getting your site redesigned, make sure you roll that in. Or if you're doing that facelift, make sure you're communicating with a team, an agency, a freelancer, or someone that can set that up for you. Okay. So you should be able to track conversions. Other little things you might do from a facelift standpoint might be adding a blog to your site, thinking about how to incorporate video. Video is huge these days.
It is.
Video. So video. And then making sure that you've got, especially if you're trying to drive physical traffic to your location, an actual map. And going back to the mobile friendliness, your phone number should be clickable from a mobile device.
Yes, that's huge.
So it should be easy for someone who's scrolling through their phone to just hit that button and be able to call, especially if you're a business that wants to generate phone calls as well, not just web leads. So keep that in mind as well. All right. So y'all, we do short lives. We're almost at our 30-minute mark, but let me open up the floor. If you have more questions, comments, or thoughts, feel free to drop it in. Thanks so much for participating.
Yes.
Let me think if there's any other final things. Linnea, any final thoughts on your end as you're thinking about important things for people to think about?
Yeah, one thing also that I've noticed, some businesses or companies, they're very large, so I know it may be hard for you to get those photos in office, or they go a little crazy with the stock images on their website.
Yeah.
But the only thing is, like, faces always win. So we do want to see your face. And those website visitors, like I had mentioned this before, we do want to see the face behind your company. Like, who is selling us this? Where am I putting my money into? So I think just either having someone on your team take some really good photos, or hiring a photographer. And you can use those photos too in multiple areas of your business. But just having those photos is great, to put those on your website. And
I
like
totally
I said, just to see face behind the business.
Yep. Most smartphones these days, y'all. I mean, definitely if you've got the resources, hire a professional photographer.
Yes.
One of the first services we used a service called smartshoot.com. You can go on SmartShoot and just say, I'm looking for a photographer to do XYZ. Here's my budget. And they will bid on your opportunity. It's a nationwide service. We're in Atlanta, so we've used some people in Atlanta from that service, but it's a nationwide service pretty much in all your major cities. So if you need to book a professional, that's a good starting point. Besides just Google and finding people on your own. I think we found people through Instagram that we've used in the past too. So that's and then if you don't have the resources for that, then just use your camera phone. Okay, most phones these days, if you go outdoors, make sure the sun is, behind the person taking the picture. That way it's projecting onto the person in the shot. That's going to be good enough lighting to get you some great imagery. Yes, use that. So thanks, Michelle, for sharing that. You guys are trying to go through the same thing.
Yes.
I mean, that's huge. It helps people connect so much better when they see real photos of real people. And that goes from communicating that on your website visually to communicating that in your social media.
Exactly.
And it can be people, but it can also be things. We've got a client we're working with, and we've slowly been making some updates to their website. So they're kind of more in a facelift phase. And because of the industry that they're in, where they're providing print services and signage services and things like that, we showcase a lot of their projects. So we've slowly been taking stock images off their site and replacing it with real projects that they've done. So sometimes it's the people, but if you've got projects or things that you can also showcase the real deal, not the stock image. and that will help you tremendously as well. And you want to plan that out too if you're thinking about going through that redesign phase.
Exactly.
All right. So we've given y'all a quick overview of like things you need to think about, but we've got a full checklist. Be on the lookout. We will be posting that up this week with more details on what it's like to go through that redesign, things you want to remember. So look out for a doc you'll be able to download that has our tips if you just want to capture it in reading format. We're also running a promo this month. So in that package, we'll include details about our promo in terms of designing websites for small businesses. I'm not going to tell you what the promotion is, but it's a discount on our regular pricing. So you've got to do the download. Look out on my page. You can look on Linnea's page to get that information, or you can check out our company page, Go Getter Group, here on LinkedIn to get that information. If you follow us on Instagram, that information will be set up in our link tree on Instagram.
Awesome.
All right. So thanks everyone for participating today. We'll be back next month with a new topic. Until then, have a great week and weekend. Take care.
Yes, thank you guys.